Less than 24 hours, Georgians will be under a shelter-in-place order.
McDonald, though, said he did not know the man was handcuffed and was trying to use his foot to pin him to the ground so he could be handcuffed.
If your friends, neighbors, or local organizations are not complying, report them to us.
Howdy, everybody. Welcome to the Free Georgia podcast. My name is Jake Green. Thank y'all for tuning in today. Before we get to our primary story of the day and our interview, we have a brand new face coming on the Free Georgia podcast, Miss Cat Hartley. Since I am moving to Montana, we thought it would be a good idea for somebody who is from Georgia to basically join the podcast and eventually, hopefully, take over the podcast. So, Cat, welcome to the show. Welcome to your first episode. How are you doing?
I'm doing good. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Thank you for agreeing to do this. It's taken us a long time to find somebody that would actually come on this show and maybe take it over eventually. So can you tell folks out there how you got into libertarianism and joining the Libertarian Party of Georgia?
Yeah, so I wasn't very political for a very long time. I actually didn't vote in any election until the last one that we just had in 2024. But I think the Israel-Palestine conflict is really what got me into politics. And since, libertarianism is very anti-war, and interventionalism, that really, stood out to me and, got me into libertarianism. And, there's also other great things like less government, less taxes,
Yes.
stuff like that.
Yeah. All the big highlights of what the LP stands for sure.
Right.
So I take it that means you listen to Dave Smith, I'm guessing.
Yes,
Yeah.
I love Dave Smith.
Yeah.
I don't listen to every podcast, but definitely I watch his podcasts, and then he's done a lot of debates, especially about the Israel-Palestine stuff, and I think he's done a really good job. And he likes to be humble, but he does have really good arguments and everything, but the other side really cannot argue morally why the war should be going on, but they'll still keep
I agree.
pushing for
I
it.
agree. He does a great job at that. And, he's one of the primary guys who got me into libertarianism as well. So he kind of pushed me over the edge into it when my brother introduced me to his podcast back in 2018, 2019, that time frame. So you're on a boat with a lot of other people who joined because of him. So or partially due to him, at least. Today we're going to be interviewing Jennifer Williams, who's part of You Are the Power. They have some fantastic news that came out in the last week that we want to share with y'all, because we've been covering You Are the Power and what they've been doing in the state of Georgia for a couple of years now. And this update will be about the Hernandez family, which we talked about either the last episode she was on or the one before that. I can't remember, but she's a frequent guest, and so we'll get to her as soon as she pops in the stream. But before we do, y'all can head on over to lpgeorgia.com to learn more about the party and learn more about what we're doing around the state to spread freedom and liberty. You can get involved in a number of different ways. You can even sign up for Liberty Watch, which is my favorite thing that LP Georgia does, which is basically compile all of the laws that are going through legislation and tell you exactly what they are and what they mean for you and how they restrict or grant more freedom in your life. So you can sign up for that. It's an email. I don't even know. Email what? Email subscription, I guess.
Oh,
Yeah. Sometimes words fail me. Sorry, y'all. I've been sick for the last few days, so I'm a little bit out of it. Head on over to lpgeorgia.com. We also have events that pop up here from time to time that you can RSVP for. You can also take the world's smallest political quiz, which will show you where you land on the political spectrum. And I found that super useful when I decided to start paying attention to politics. So
Where are you on there?
I'm way up here.
Like at the top?
Basically in that corner. Yeah.
Dang, I have to take that. I didn't know y'all had that.
Yeah. And I mean, I'm an anarchist ANCAP, so I'm going to be way up here at the top. So yeah, that's what it is. All right. Well, let's go talk to Jennifer, everybody. All right, Jennifer Williams, welcome back to the show. I think you're now the most frequented guest on the show. I don't think we've had anybody else on here as often as we've had you on.
Well, that's just an honor because I love coming on this show. So thank you.
Heck yeah. Well, I appreciate it. And, a lot of the time we're begging people to, send prayers, send thoughts, help fund cases and things like that. But today I think we've got some good news to talk about. So we've covered at least 2 families since we've been having you on the show. And the first one I think we covered was the Timms family. Can you give us an update on what's happening with the Timms?
Yes, so their criminal trial in Gordon County happened, started March 3rd and it ended April 3rd. So it wasn't an everyday trial, but it was scattered throughout that month. And they were looking at 80 years in prison for a crime that never occurred because they were seeking help for their baby, their medically fragile baby. And DFAC CPS took over. They were arrested. They were indicted through a grand jury. And they actually were indicted after we went public with You Are the Power. When You Are the Power went public with their story, that's actually when they were indicted officially. So they had their criminal trial and they got a unanimous not guilty verdict from their jury.
There we
for
go.
every single charge. So
That's
it was
amazing.
amazing. Yeah, it was scary. It's sad to be there. You don't know what people are thinking. So every day when people wanted updates, like, well, what do you think? Like, what do you think the jury's thinking? I'm like, I don't know what the jury's thinking. Like, I know the truth and I can see the facts. And they had amazing attorneys. They had really, really great attorneys. And they had a beautiful, fair judge, like the kind of judge that was meant to be a judge.
Yeah.
Judge Suzanne Smith.
That's awesome. Because you definitely don't always get that. And yeah, I mean, I imagine the moment right before it was announced is like right before the verdict was read. That's got to be one of the more intense moments of your entire life, to be sitting there waiting to know if you're going to be going to jail.
Yeah. How in the world they held their composure?
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, Ryan Ralston was there with us from You Are the Power. My husband, my sister's a You Are the Power member. Jonathan and I had our kids with us, 3 of our children, our youngest kids. And we were kind of just waiting for the jury to knock on the door, essentially. If they either had a question, they would knock. Or if we heard a knock, it meant they had a verdict. And they had a question at one point. And their question was, and everyone comes back in for that question. They bring the jury back in. They bring everyone back in. And they read it out loud. And it was, what if we find one defendant guilty and the other innocent?
Oh.
And in that moment, I was just like, oh my God, like, why are they even going there? You know what I mean? So that was just scary, but it took them less than 3 hours of deliberations to come out with a not guilty verdict. And you have to wait for each charge and each name. So the judge had to go over Brady's charges. So each time you hear not guilty, you're really excited, but you don't want to get overly excited because you don't know what these other charges or what the other defendant is experiencing. So it's like you're kind of holding your breath between each one, but it was it was just a beautiful moment to hear not guilty for every charge. And the jury was amazing. They stuck it out through a month-long trial. And Jason Hood was Brady's attorney and Catherine Bernard was Carrie's attorney. And they worked beautifully together, and they were just fun to watch. They got to tear apart some really bad actors in the state of Georgia, and it was fun. It was entertaining to watch them make these people squirm in their seats. I mean, it was really enjoyable. My kids loved it. I mean, they're 11, 13, 14, and they loved it. They loved it because you see these people lying and doing bad things, and these attorneys they did such a good job with them. So
that's awesome.
Really happy moment. They got to get Jameson that night. They went and left from the celebration. Everything with juvenile court is ended with the Timms family. So they got to go get Jameson, who has been with family this whole 3 years. He was in foster care for 6-8 months, I believe. A lot of mess with that, but thankfully he's been safe with his family this whole time. So they got to go get him, and they're doing well.
That's amazing. That's so good. That's such a good white pill moment that there are still people who can read facts and actually determine that somebody's innocent. You're not, like, throughout the rest of the process, you're not going to feel like that's going to be the case.
No.
Just with everything that the child abuse pediatrician and stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. And these bad actors can say bad things on the stand, and it's hard when you hear a doctor say, oh, unequivocally, this is abuse. Like, we never doubted it for a second. It's child abuse. 100%. When you hear that, I know the truth. But as these jury members, and they brought in a lot for Calhoun in Gordon County, they brought in 600 jurors. And they were really, the DA did not want anyone to have heard this story before to be on that jury box. Like, she was pretty adamant. In fact, the day that the trial started, she wanted to move it to another county.
Wow.
Yeah. But the judge was like, no, it's going to happen here.
That's such an unrealistic thing to expect these days. Like, you can go research everything in 2 seconds. And so to be like, I just want nobody to have heard of this is such a dumb request.
Yeah. I don't think your name got brought up, actually, now that I'm thinking about it. But the DA did ask, all these different, every podcast I've been on. But I don't remember if Jake Green got brought up.
Yes.
It was just, ridiculous. Has anyone here ever heard of "You Are the Power"? Has anyone here ever? I mean, her voice was so annoying. It was horrible. It was just horrible. But I'm so happy for them. It was such an enjoyable moment, just to see them finally get justice. And it's hard to say, they didn't really fully get justice, right? 3 years without your kid, 3 years of hell, $200,000 in debt.
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely not going to be justice for that. You can't really put a price tag on missing 3 years with your kid.
Yeah.
There's no monetary compensation that's going to make up for that. So it's not justice. They just, in the end, got what they should have gotten 3 years ago.
Yes.
It's just a sad situation that it comes to that, and that they had to be separated from their kid for that long. That's brutal.
Yes. Yeah.
But hey, in the end, seems to have worked out okay.
You have to look forward, and that's one thing that it's easy for me to say because I didn't experience this, but I do try and tell each family, that we support. You can't look at what was done to you. You can acknowledge it. We certainly can't pretend it didn't happen, but we have to look forward, because you can't live in misery. You can't live in, look what they did to me, because then they're still kind of winning. We have to move forward and say, look what we beat. Look at what we did. Yeah. Now we have our family together. And the money part is horrible, but it is just money. And I know that that's a hard thing to say when you're $200,000 in debt and you don't have a fancy boat or a house or a vacation to show for it. You don't have anything to show for it, but you have your family together. And we try really hard to focus on the positive for them moving forward.
I think the doctor should have to pay those fees, honestly.
I think the
For putting
doctors
them
need to
through
be
that.
in prison. Yeah, the
Yeah.
doctors
Yeah,
need to be put in prison. These child abuse pediatricians are, I've seen them test enough now. They're horrible humans. These are not people that thought there was abuse and got it wrong. That is not what's happening here. They have no problem lying on the stand. They have no problem not doing an investigation. It's really wrong. These are not accidents. They belong in prison 100%. These are horrible people.
Actually, Kat brought up an interesting point, which is the child abuse pediatrician, the person who accuses them of doing this, is the one that should be responsible. Like if they get off and they are not, if the parents are found not guilty as they were in the Tim's case, then the person who started the whole process should be the one under investigation. And you should, I don't know, it seems like, I know libertarians generally don't want more laws, but if you're the one that's going to be dropping laws on somebody and potentially sending them to prison for life, you should have some culpability if you're incorrect.
Yeah. The problem we've run into, because the number one thing we see is you should sue. You should sue. They need to be sued. And I just am like, oh my God, people don't understand. And maybe I wouldn't have either, but they have sovereign immunity. Like these are child abuse pediatricians who can say, hey, we thought it was abuse. And they still think it's abuse. They'll still stand and be like, oh, the jury got it wrong. So are these families?
But are they going to push it? Like, if they really thought that they got it wrong, are they going to go out and actually like advocate that this person still like was abusing their kids?
Well, thankfully they can't, as far as like criminal goes. If it was a hung jury, they can. The state could go after the family again. But since it was an acquittal, there's really nothing they can do. But if you ask these doctors, if we went to Verena Brown, who's a child abuse pediatrician, if we went to Stephen Mesner, who's a child abuse pediatrician, both testified against the Tims, they would stand by what they said. They're just that gross. And in fact, under oath, they were asked by defense attorneys, have you ever gotten it wrong? Have you ever said this is abuse and another colleague came in and said, no, it wasn't, or medical testing came back to say that you were wrong? This is their answer. No, that's never happened.
So they're batting 100 or batting 1,000. That's great.
They think they are God. It's really a wild thing. And let me tell you guys something. We'll kind of jump into the Hernandez. So Stephen Mesner, he runs the child abuse protocol. He's the head of the team at CHOA, Children's Healthcare of Atlanta. Yeah. And he testified against the Tims and he testified against the Hernandez family. The day he came to testify against the Hernandez family, Carrie Tims was there. She came to support Matt and Taki. She was sitting with my family. I was sequestered in the gallery in the lobby because I was going to be testifying for the defense. So I wasn't in there. But everyone came out of that room that day and was like, you won't believe what Stephen Mesner, what he did to Carrie. He was walking from leaving and he stopped in front of Carrie Tims and smugly said, hi, and walked away. And Rebecca Lindstrom with 11 Alive was there and she put that in her article.
Oh, good.
So it was a very profound, smug hi. And people were even saying, well, why was he being so smug? You know, he lost that trial. But in reality, he knows he won for 3 years. He knows for 3 years he tormented this family. He knows that. And it's just sick. He's just a sick individual. It's sad. It's sad. But he lost. He lost both these trials back to back. And I'm grateful for that. The difference between the Hernandez trial and the Tims trial, it's interesting because Carrie's attorney, Catherine, was also Matt Hernandez's attorney. Okay, so Catherine Bernard, she had just got done with this trial and was jumping to another one. and you are the powers involved with both families. She has all the information. Some of the same bad actors, like Stephen Mesner, are at both trials.
Yeah.
And the difference here was the judge. The judge in Forsyth County is not fair, broke the law. It was so bad we wouldn't even have enough time on your show for me to tell you everything corrupt that happened in that courtroom. It's unbelievable how it went. So to put it in a nutshell, the state is allowed to bring up anything DFACS related. In fact, they brought in DFACS people, put them on the stand. They're allowed to talk about anything DFACS, but the defense team wasn't.
What? Huh?
So
what does that mean?
It means as soon as the defense team had a really good question to ask somebody, here's a good example for you guys. When your kids are taken by the state of Georgia, DFACS, CPS, is supposed to give the parents a case plan. In the state of Georgia, they have 30 days to do this. This is a law. It's a federal law, and each state has like 30 to 60 days. It's a federal law to give the family a case plan that they have to work through. So it might say, you have parenting classes. You need to get sober. You need housing. It just tells you all these things you have to do to get your kids back. When I met the Hernandez family, when I spoke with them the first time, after their girls left my home, I asked them about their case plan. Like, what are you guys needing to do? We don't have one of those. I'm like, yes, you do. You have to have one. Well, it turns out they never got one for like 130 days. Never got one. This got brought up to the judge, like, Your Honor, the family never even got a case plan, which is against the law. We want to question the same people the state has questioned about this case plan that never came to be. He wouldn't allow it. He said it was irrelevant to this case and irrelevant to this trial on dozens of occasions, to the point where Catherine Bernard, she said it every day, multiple times a day. We're going to continue with our objection that this court will not allow us to bring up, and the judge would be like, noted, as noted, as noted. She would talk sometimes, you guys, and she would object to something, and the judge would cut her off. And he would just be like, overruled, like, wouldn't look at her.
It's just astounding to me that people can act that way when you're supposed to be non-biased. You're supposed to be the one that's solely looking at the facts, not like make up your mind beforehand who has more rights to do something, like, or who has more legitimacy or what have you. Like, that is not the job of a judge. Like, the judge is not supposed to come in there with any opinions at all. Someone
needs to tell Judge David Dickinson that, who's been on the throne for a very long time. And I don't think he said in the middle of court, he said, I've never had a trial like this. I've never dealt with this before. He was frustrated at Catherine because she would question his authority so much. And it was beautiful because she had every right. That's why she's there. She's there for her client.
Yeah.
I mean,
good for her.
We want a fair trial anyway, right? If the jury needs to hear something, here's another good example. I've got plenty of them. Before the trial actually started, the state had a Daubert motion. So they put in a Daubert motion, which is to try and keep out medical experts, any expert witnesses, actually. In this situation, medical experts. Jake, they wanted to exclude every one of Matt and Taki's doctors, all of them, so that they didn't have a defense for their baby's health condition.
Wow. That's how, I mean, that's like low key what happened in like 2020 when like some doctors would say, this is a terrible pandemic that's going to kill everybody. And then the doctors that would be like, no, let's hang on. They would all get canceled, censored, kicked off YouTube, debanked,
Listen,
all that kind of
if you're
stuff.
so sure that this case and this couple abused their baby, if you're so sure, let their witnesses testify. So there was 4 that were going to testify. 1 did get excluded, and he's an amazing witness. He's so wonderful. He lives in the Netherlands. And the DA said, Your Honor, when I cross-examine people, I want them to be in front of me. And so she got her way. She was like a 12-year-old. Got it. If Caroline Yee, if you ever listen to this podcast, you have a horrible attitude. And my children thought you were disgusting. She would throw her pen down if she didn't get her way. She would huff and puff, literally where I would punish my children. Like, if I see that mess, you're being punished. She would just have such an attitude, like a child, a disrespectful child. It was disgusting.
And the judge was okay with that?
Never said a word.
But
Except he agreed with her on. It was ridiculous. It was to the point, if you have it in you to end up watching these closing arguments, which 11 Alive actually did post them.
Okay.
Catherine calls the judge out in her closing arguments for working with the DA. I mean, she straight up just looks at the jury because she was bringing up the law that just got passed in Georgia, Ridge's Law, which is the second medical opinion law. It was signed the day this trial started, May 12th.
Wow.
And she was telling the jury, and it got objected to. Like, he's like, shh, we don't want them to know. So when it gets objected to and the judge agrees with the state, Catherine's like, well, as you guys can see clearly, this is what it looks like when a DA and a judge work together every day and are literally working together. And I looked at the judge and he was sitting back like, he just looked so mad. But she didn't care. She did her job properly. She was respectful. She was always respectful. She's classy and elegant and eloquent, but she's not putting up with nonsense.
That's awesome.
So the fact that this fight was so much harder for the Hernandez family, you know, from kicking out their doctors, they tried to keep me out as a fact witness. They tried to keep the Uncle Tony out as a fact witness. The judge wasn't going to allow any character witnesses. None. Because good character does not negate criminal behavior.
Sure it doesn't. Yeah. That's insane. Then why would you raise your kids to have good character? You friggin' idiot.
Why are you putting people on the stand to say these are child abusers? They painted them as child abusers. And all the defense wants to do is have others come in. The biggest part that was a huge problem, and I really do believe he went against the law on this, he would not let parental fitness testify. So for an example, the juvenile court hired people, therapists, counselors, psychologists, for Matt and Taki to have to see. So in the beginning, Kat, if you don't know, they were separated for 10 months, the husband and wife. They were not allowed to speak to each other.
Actually, do you think you could go, because I know nothing about this case, and like I guess I'm a little bit lost, but do you think you could quickly go over how it started, how y'all got involved, how DFACS got involved and everything?
Yeah, let me speed wrap it for you the best I can.
Okay.
There we go.
Their baby had a swollen leg. Their baby was about 11 weeks old. They had a 3-year-old older sibling. They noticed the swollen leg. It wasn't super noticeable, but mom noticed it. The same time that she's noticing it, she thinks the baby's soft spot on the head is not appropriate. She thinks something's going on with the baby's head. So she calls her husband and she's like, hey, I want to bring Emma to the doctor. Matt says, well, we have an appointment tomorrow with Aria already. Let's call and see if they'll put Emma on the record as well. Like, we'll just fit them both in. Okay, let's do that. So that's what they do. They go and they get seen. This pediatrician says, I don't know what's going on, but yeah, her leg's swollen. Her head's fine. You need to take her down to CHOA and get x-rays. So they say, okay. They take her down to CHOA, Children's Healthcare of Atlanta, and Matt's not allowed in. I guess it's still COVID rules in 2023. He wasn't allowed in. Only one parent. And this parent, English is her second language. And she speaks very good English, but medical terms are not super easy for her. So Matt has to wait outside. She goes in. Within 2 hours, they have called DFACS, they have called the police, and they have said, which one of you abused your baby? Because she has multiple fractures in various healing stages. Someone abused your baby. She gets arrested 2 weeks later. Just her, just the mom. She is breastfeeding. So when she goes off to jail, she asks if she can bring her pump so she can continue pumping milk in jail for her baby, because Emma won't take a bottle. The aunt and uncle get the kids. Mom is arrested. Dad is not. That's kind of how it all began. Emma continued having more issues. Okay, she started having these linear lines up and down the bottom of her feet and on her little leg. They woke up one morning, aunt and uncle, she's got like these bruise mark discolorations. They think, okay, we're going to be able to show them something medically is going on with our niece. Like, this is, let's call DFACS, because they have to. And they tell them, go back to CHOA. Well, DFACS says, I bet the aunt and uncle let the mom come over and abuse the baby.
Did we lose her?
Yeah.
Yeah. She'll pop back in a second.
That's
Apologies, y'all.
hilarious. Yeah, the mom really needed to get her fix, abusing her child. Like,
Yeah.
what? I thought she was in jail. Or was she not in jail when that happened?
She wasn't in jail when that happened.
Okay. Why'd
yeah,
they assume the wife, like why'd they take the wife to prison and not the husband?
'Cause she was the one who went into the room.
Got it.
Yeah. If the husband had been in there, he probably would have been the one. But yeah, it was arbitrary. They didn't actually try to make any determination as to who actually may have abused the kid. It was just the mom was in the room. She probably didn't say the perfect things because English is not her first language and she's talking in medical terms. And so she got accused of it and she was the one. So it's wild. The Tim's case, just as wild. We've talked about a few others on this show before as well. And the child abuse pediatrician is so eager to call it child abuse that they don't actually do any investigation. And in fact, they ignore reports or tests or things that the family gets done outside of Children's Hospital of Atlanta. So if CHOA isn't the one that does it, then the child abuse pediatrician is going to ignore it, which is crazy. Jennifer's back.
Hey.
There we go.
I don't know.
Hello.
I doubt your internet kicked me off.
Well, I've got about 10 minutes before I've got to get out of this room. So, yeah.
How many minutes?
10 more minutes till I got to be out of this room.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, yeah,
So,
Kat, remember where she? Yeah. Do you remember where you were, Jennifer? Or do we need to remind you?
No.
Okay.
I remember where. So they removed the kids from the aunt and the uncle, claiming that mom must have snuck over. We end up getting the girls for a respite placement. So we were foster parents for 13 years. We get the girls for just 5 nights. And we noticed something's not right with Emma. There's a medical problem with this baby. No one told us about this. We reach out to DFACS. Long story short, Kat, they end up closing our home a few months later for speaking out and trying to say something's wrong. I found the parents online. They were talking about how worried they were for their baby. Something's going on with their baby. So we began supporting them.
And from there, we found You Are the Power organization, who's like a grassroots organization to step in when the government is overreaching. They began supporting this family alongside with us. Since then, we've met countless families that this is happening to with child abuse pediatricians. So the girls were stuck in foster care, bouncing around from house to house to house to house to house, even in a foster to adopt home they were placed in. And finally, the aunt and uncle, who never abused Emma, never allowed the mom to do it, got them back. It took over a year before they got them back into their care. So it's almost been 2 years total since this happened, and they just had their criminal trial. Even through all of this shady stuff and all of this corruption, they were found not guilty on all of their charges, and they were looking at 80 years in prison.
She freeze again.
Who?
I'm still here.
Yeah, I see her. She's there.
There we go. No, there you go. Sorry. That was me.
Jake, between your internet and mine, this is really scary. Oh gosh. Yeah, so that's it in a nutshell, but we support a lot of other families who have all gone through this, and it's really the same story over and over. It's the same thing. Someone brings their baby in with concerns for either these markings or a swollen leg or a swollen arm, and they end up they find fractures. And this is like a really big dispute whether these are even fractures or not, because some of them, we really believe that the rib fractures are from birth. I fully believe now more babies are born with rib fractures from birth that we just don't know about because we don't go around x-raying babies. But all of these kids, in every single story that every family we support has either a vitamin D deficiency, they have an Ehlers-Danlos diagnosis, osteogenesis imperfecta, and CHOA will tell the court that they've ruled out everything. They'll say, we ruled out all differential diagnosis. It only leads to abuse. And they'll say that to the juvenile judges and DFACs, and everyone's like, oh, okay. And then law enforcement doesn't do an investigation. That I can say for certain they don't, because we have Detective Faulkner on the stand for the Timms family, and he sat there through testimony, and literally it was like, no, I never went to their house. No, I never asked the parents any questions. No, I never looked at the baby. He said, it was cold out. The baby had a lot of clothes on. So he never looked at his injuries. And then in the Hernandez case, guess what? The state never called law enforcement to the stand.
Wow.
So law enforcement didn't testify in this case. Only child abuse pediatricians did.
Wow. So there's no actual investigation.
No.
It was just
none.
Child abuse pediatrician saying this happened because I saw the results. Yeah.
Yes. And Kat, it was 10 months later that it was 7 months later that Matt got arrested. He found out he was being indicted through a grand jury. So he turned himself in so he wouldn't get arrested, and spent 2 nights in jail. And it took 10 months before he and his wife could communicate again and even talk to each other. So you're just talking about one layer of corruption after another. And I think these judges and CPS and everybody, they're all just banking on breaking you down financially, emotionally, spiritually, and physically before you even get to court. And you're just so wore down that they beat you. And they weren't expecting these families to have so much support. They weren't expecting these families to hire really nice, expensive, good attorneys to fight them. And that's why these families won. It's sad, but it takes money to buy your children back from the state of Georgia.
And so, like, what do these judges, the pediatricians, like, what do they get out of it?
That's the number one question. So for child abuse pediatricians, we have found out in almost every state, they are contracted with DHS. So they don't actually work for the hospital. They're contracted with the state they work for. So when they find abuse, they get a paycheck for that. And CPS gets their paycheck because Title IV-E funds kick in when a child is put into foster care. And from there, you're talking about guardian ad litems, school counselors, transporters, therapists, children attorney, SAG attorney, which is the DFACS attorney. You're talking about a snowball of people getting paid because Emma and Arya went into foster care.
Yeah. It's a financial incentive, and it's similar. It's also similar to what happened during COVID, where the doctors were incentivized to say it was a COVID death because
Yes.
they get paid a certain amount of money, tens of thousands of dollars, to say that it's a COVID death. And so,
Yes.
like, Libertarian Party and economics of the Libertarian Party, like, incentives are everything, and incentives will get people to do things that they normally wouldn't, especially when they don't have to face the repercussions of their actions themselves.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what's going on here.
Yeah.
We have 2 more minutes. So Jennifer, do you want to just put a bow on it and
Yeah, tell us how they're
end on something
doing, how the
happy?
family's
Yeah.
doing. Yeah.
So Matt and Taki are ecstatic, but unfortunately, more corruption is here and their girls cannot go home. They have found to be innocent of any crimes. And we now have to wait on juvenile judge Heather Dunn in Forsyth County to grant them the access to their children. So they're still on limited time when they can even see them, like 4 hours a week. It's really sad, but we're trying to be positive, and they're supposed to go back to court June 10th. And we're just staying positive and hopeful that we can help them raise the necessary funds. If people want to go to youarethepower.net, they can see each family that we support. We've gotten so many inquiries, Jake, that we now have a family reunification program that You Are the Power has launched, which is awesome but horrible because we have so many inquiries, we can't keep up with them. Like, we are turning people away constantly. It's really sad. But people can follow on there. They can find me on Facebook. I'm not on Twitter or whatever it's called now. I'm really not on anything but Facebook because I'm old and I don't have time to learn anything new. But people can follow on there. I try and be an open book for these cases. So they are welcome to find me on there and follow the case on there as well. But
Awesome.
we have more families coming, so there's more work to be done.
Well, good. The more publicity we can get it, the more likely good things will happen in the future. So,
Absolutely.
yeah, Jennifer, I appreciate you coming back on. I like
Yes.
all the good news. It's mixed with a little bad news, but mostly it's good things are happening.
Absolutely. Yeah. Thank you, Jake, for always giving me this opportunity. I really appreciate it.
You're welcome. And we'll talk again soon. Everybody out there, we'll be back again next week for more Free Georgia podcast. We'll see you next time.